Many years ago, I served as a volunteer for mission in the Episcopal Church in the Diocese of Honduras. And this was in the early 80s. It was a time when most of Central America was at war for a variety of social justice issues. I went there to develop a theological education program for the purpose of raising a Honduran priesthood. At that time, all but one of the clergy were foreign-born, and the bishop realized that if the war would be extended into Honduras, he'd be left with only one priest for the whole country. So besides the primary task of theological education throughout the diocese, I also had a couple of missions. When one works in the third world, one does not have the luxury of only having one job. And so, I mean, it doesn't mean anything. So one of these missions was in an area called Carpules. Peasants fleeing from wars in the other countries and on their borders many times migrated to any empty lands that they could find, and they became squatters. They would build little huts, oftentimes made of cardboard boxes and branches and trees and mud. And I used to hold services with these people in these villages, in this one village called Carpules. We used to do Bible study on Thursdays and then Eucharist on Sunday afternoon. Well, as I went into the village, or the area, this one Thursday afternoon, there was a heavy tropical storm. If you've ever been in a tropical storm, you can barely see because the rain is so heavy. And when I drove in, what I found is that all the huts had been axed down. All the chickens had been killed, and the goats were all hanging on the posts of the fences. All I have to do is close my eyes, and I can still see that. The military had come while the men were away. The children were just running around crying. The old people just sat there and cried. It seems that the military had raided the village and had destroyed everything that these people had tried to build in an effort to find a home. When the offer had been made to me by the bishop during my senior year in seminary in Sewanee to come and train persons for ministry, I got really excited. And of course my response was, here I am, send me. I had a deep sense that God was calling me to go, so I did. As I drove into this village in the midst of pouring rain and I saw the disaster before my eyes, I was in total disbelief that this was really happening. It was the sort of thing that one sees in a movie about war-torn countries, but it really doesn't happen, it's just a movie, but it was real. My first thought was, I need the press and I need a lawyer. I couldn't call the police because they're the ones that had done this. And besides, there was no phone facilities or anything like that out there in the mountains. So I gathered the people and they began to tell me their stories of what had happened. I wanted so much to let them know that they were not alone, that God was right there in the midst of their suffering, and He was suffering with them. What I never dreamt was possible is that they already knew that. I'm the one who had to learn that. I wanted the press and I wanted a lawyer, and they wanted me to celebrate the Eucharist. So we gathered under this gigantic ceiba tree to shelter ourselves to some degree from the rain, and we began to sing, and we began to celebrate Holy Communion. Well, I went back on Saturday afternoon. Later, I did get a lawyer and I did get the press, but immediately what they wanted was Holy Communion. They wanted to commune with their God. I went back on Saturday afternoon, and there were several men sitting on the fence, and they had their machetes. I don't know if you know what a machete is, but it's this long, big knife. So I was teasing, and I said, you sent out a welcoming committee for me. And they said, no, the military are coming back today, and we want to be ready this time. All I could think of was, when I said I would come, it certainly was not to come and die. So for a split second, there was a battle going on in my mind and in my heart. if I stay, I might get killed. On the other hand, if I leave, what am I saying about the power of God and God's ability to provide? So I decided to stay. There was another theological education student with me who was a refugee from Nicaragua. And so I said, look, you don't have to go in if you don't want to. I don't want to put you in harm's way, but I believe this is what God is calling me to do. And he said, look, here I am with you. So we went forward. So I began to celebrate the Eucharist, and at the very moment of breaking the bread, the military came back. And again, the thought crossed my mind, I didn't come here for this. And again, I knew that I had to go forward. So I continued. Well, they initially cursed me out and yelled and everything, and then they left, except for one young soldier. He stayed and he received communion with us. That thread of gold that I spoke of initially has weaved its way through history and scripture and has wound itself around this community who God said, who I believe God had said, send me, Lord. And what the community was saying is, here we are. Here we are, Lord, thy will be done. And God indeed did provide. So I'll conclude for today by letting you know that today in the Diocese of Honduras, there is a church that has been built in this very area, and the name of that church is St. Paul's Episcopal Church. Iglesia San Pablo de la Iglesia Episcopal. Thank you.